Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Eric Rom here, back with my little follow-up to my Lost Supper blogs from before, and my take on LAX. So at first, I just want to say that above all, in my last few posts talking about the show right before LAX premiered, I think my buddy Dan gave me the biggest props. I was so close with Saeed. I was so close. But yeah, and I think I got about 50-50 right, but we'll see. Time will only tell, right? So anyway, I'm more so here to talk about my take on LAX. Obviously, that's new loss, that's fresh loss, kicked off the final season. What do we got, 16 more episodes to go? So yeah, I think my girlfriend's reaction right off the bat was perfect. Not even 5 seconds after the show ended, the credits rolled, I just turned to her and said, "So what'd you think?" And she just looked at me and said, "I feel uneasy." And yeah, uneasy is a good term, you know, because at first glance, the knee-jerk reaction, you know, is like, what's going on, you know, what's with this alternate 815 and, you know, the all the stuff that's going on the island and everything like that. But you know, I think uneasy was good because I actually got really kind of creeped out and depressed after I watched the initial premiere. You know, nothing to do about the show itself or being let down or anything, but just like this feeling it invoked in you and the choices that you make in your life and how those affect you and, you know, the outcomes of things that may change due to those choices and decisions. And I don't know, I think it was really neat how they're doing that, you know, and like I said, the knee-jerk reaction, of course, is what's going on, but, you know, and so many new questions, you know, why was Desmond on the plane, you know, where was Shannon, where was Echo, you know, just all kinds of countless questions, but, you know, this is the final season, and Lost is reinvented the way it's told its story every season. We've had flashbacks, flash forwards, we've had time travel, and now I think they've reinvented the way that they're going to tell the story again. And I think they're really taking and paying an homage to comic books. You know, one of the best things about comic books is, let's say you know, see Dark Knight for the first time, and you decide that you want to read Batman. So you don't really know much about comics, and you go down to your local comic book store and you go, all right, you know, I want to buy Batman. Well, you walk over to the comic book shelf, and especially a title like Batman, there's anywhere between, you know, 5 to 10 different storylines to choose from. Now, these storylines don't always necessarily cross paths. I mean, Frank Miller's Batman is nowhere near what Grant Morrison's Batman is. You know, it takes ideas, characters. You know, you may have Two-Face show up in a story written by one author and illustrated by someone, and you might have Two-Face show up in another story illustrated and drawn by someone else. But you're familiar with Two-Face. You know his origins. You know this. You know that. It's a what if. One of the greatest what-if comic book series I ever read was Star Wars Infinities, or Infinites, whichever it is. And what if Luke didn't nail the trench run? What if Leia found out that she was a Jedi much earlier on in the series? You know, lots of things like that. You know, so, and it just was this, you know, long comic series that did New Hope, Empire, and Jedi with some of these what-if ideas and scenarios in place. And I think that's what Lost is doing. I think you don't necessarily want to focus on the plane as much. I mean, so many questions are now formed because of this plane situation. You know, I brought up Desmond. Now, you know, yes, he wasn't on Oceanic 815, but in this alternate timeline, universe, reality, whatever you want to refer to it as, Jack did meet Desmond prior to going on 815. So maybe in this strange new world of Lost, you know, this Jack still met Desmond before the plane, and that's where he's recognizing him from. You know, don't automatically assume that he's making reference to the island, like, I recognize you from the island. I mean, we saw right off the bat, in this world, the island's submerged. I mean, in a great homage to Beetlejuice, they did the whole title sequence going through Other Town and, you know, showing you the foot and everything. Well, I mean, that foot, you know, with the barnacles and the algae and the plant life, that's been underwater a long time. It's not like if events that just took place on the island are what is pushed that island into the water. I mean, that looks like it's been underwater since the 70s. So maybe in this reality, Rosinski and Pierre Chang were so power hungry that they did tap too far and they didn't contain it with the button quick enough and the island sunk. So, you know, don't focus too much on the plane situation. You know, I think there was some chill-inducing moments when Boone says, you know, to Locke, I'd follow you if the plane went down. Now see, when you think about it in this what-if scenario, you already know the origin. The plane goes down. Boone does follow Locke. He becomes his first disciple. And what happens to Boone? He dies. I mean, it's great to see that conversation in this what-if situation. You know, Charlie saying, I was supposed to die. We've seen that in the origin story. Yes, Charlie was supposed to die. The best death in Lost history, by the way. Went out like a total champ. But still, Charlie had to die. A small little thing was Jack's pen. In the origin story, we saw, you know, Jack landed. He was trying to save Rose on the beach with the CPR. He asked Boone to get him a pen because he's reaching in his pocket and he can't find his pen. Well, we got to see like a little prelude to that, or not prelude, I guess. What would it be? I don't even know the word. A post what if. You know, well, Kate obviously took his pen to break her handcuffs to get out. So we saw like one little answer to the story that we are familiar with the last 5 years. And that's what everybody wants. They want answers. And all the answers are on the island situation. You know, I mean, I don't know if they're going to tie together. I think the only thing that tipped me off to this alternate what if and the origin familiar story is the conversation with Locke and Jack in the airport. I mean, that was downright creepy. I mean, I was tearing up and having chills at the same time, because in this world, Locke and Jack were always supposed to meet, and it's looking like Jack is going to fix Locke, which is just mind-boggling. I mean, what is the words he used? Nothing is irreversible. I mean, just the play on words there with everything we've seen with Lost is just so great. But, you know, we want answers, you know, and the answers are on the island. Think of everything you found out. About the second or third time I watched it on the DVR, I just watched the island portion, because in the island portion you have lots of parallels to season 1. Juliet dies right off the bat. Now, this draws a lot of parallels and similarities to Boone. And I'm going to get at that in 1 second. Alright, so stay tuned for part 2.